Hi, this is Ken Gidge, and this is The Art of Politics. And of course, you know I have a partner who happens to be a Republican, and I'm a Democrat, and we're the only show like this, and I don't know why. And well, maybe I do, because everyone's afraid. Bill O'Brien, how are you?
Good to see you today, Ken.
You have
I have
brought
a guest.
Another guest?
I've brought a guest with us. It's Greg Moore. He's the New Hampshire director for Americans for Prosperity, a good friend of mine. Greg and I met when I was Speaker of the House, and I was able to hire him as the Chief of Staff. And so, Greg, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Ken.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me on your
Nice
show.
seeing you. So, excuse me. I know he was your Chief of Staff because, and this guy, when we were doing the Liquor Commission, studying the Liquor Commission, of which you asked if I'd go on the board, and I did, to study it. And this gentleman was running in and out. He doesn't look like a person who moves so quickly all the time. You don't gain weight, do you?
Well, you know, it's one of those cases where I run about 50 miles a week, so that's usually takes the energy out of me. So I'm usually a little more calm by the time I get into work.
50 miles a week?
That's the game plan.
The Democrats chasing
when you guys get me going pretty good, sometimes Bill would work me so I didn't have time for it, but that's the game plan.
Why don't you tell us what you're doing over at Americans for Prosperity, what the organization is, what your role is, and why the people of New Hampshire should care about your job.
Absolutely. Americans for Prosperity is a nonprofit. It's nonpartisan, and its focus is exclusively on promoting and implementing and advocating for economic freedom. And we believe that economic freedom is truly what makes America great and what makes economies great. If you look at all the various indices, the countries that are the most free tend to be the countries that are the healthiest, tend to be the countries with the highest life expectancy, highest literacy. So among a whole series of metrics, the measure of economic freedom is really a proxy for a number of other quality of life indicators. And so we think that that's a critical thing to get back to, because America back in 2000 was ranked number 3 in a national ranking as far as economic freedom.
It's international.
International.
Okay.
I apologize. International, global ranking.
Yep.
And we were behind only Hong Kong and Singapore, very small countries. So as far as a sizable country, America was number 1. Well, by that same ranking, we've fallen all the way down to 17. And we're behind countries like Finland and Denmark. Not necessarily countries that are typically well known for their economic freedom. In fact, in many cases, they're countries that are well known for having a very active and very involved
Wait
government.
a minute. Aren't those the countries who have health care for all citizens?
They do.
Isn't it your organization that always criticizes Obamacare?
Well, as a matter of fact, we do criticize Obamacare, and we believe that the passage of Obamacare is part of the reason why we've fallen down to 17. And we want to get back up to the top of the charts. I mean, that's really economic freedom. If you follow a trend, the freest countries are also the wealthiest countries. And the freest countries are also the countries that have the highest quality of life indices. And when we're slipping in our economic freedom, it can't be long before we start falling in these other indices.
Now who does that rating? Because I've seen ratings like that, for example, for health outcomes in the United States, and it shows the United States being much further down than you'd expect. But often, if you look into the figures, and I think I'm talking about the United Nations survey, if you look into the figures, what they don't consider is how much more intensive is, for example, the American approach to trying to save the lives of newborns. Many newborns who are born in other countries would be classified as stillborns and don't reduce the life expectancy. They were never born alive. Here we do our best to keep every child alive who is born, and it reduces.
That's not true.
It absolutely is true.
Well, if you want to have a baby, the best place to have it, one step up from us, is Cuba. Cuba is ahead of us for infant mortality.
And again, you have to look at behind the figures as to what infant mortality is. If a child in the United States is born substantially defective, some real health problems, Here we go to Herculean efforts to save the life of that child. In other countries, including Cuba, they would classify that birth as a stillborn birth, a non-viable child.
You're not
and so,
saying
and so,
that-
and so, if you compare the two countries, you might say, well, look at the survival rate of Cuba for newborns is better than the United States. The reason it appears that way is because they have a different definition of what it is to be born alive.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Hey, I'm getting a little confused here, which shouldn't surprise you too much. But you just said that we do everything we can do to keep a child alive, correct?
Well, unless it's Planned Parenthood
Okay.
but
Well,
beyond that.
okay, but you're saying, and the listings quite simply are that if you're a woman and you wish to have your child live and get the most care, Cuba is above us. We're like,
And again,
we're 19. But wait a minute, you just said that they will not do everything to save a child's life. So
it's comparing apples and oranges. Let me describe the American apple to you and the Cuban orange. The American apple is that if a child is born barely viable, perhaps even born and not breathing, we will go into Herculean efforts to save the life of that child, to make that child viable. We have intensive care units,
But
for
wouldn't that
example.
put us above Cuba?
Let me
that put
no,
us
it
above
won't.
Cuba?
Because what we're doing is taking children and infants, newborns, that in the Cuban medical system, they'd say that's a child born, stillborn. That's a child who never was alive. That is not a child who we count in our statistics on infant mortality.
Wait a minute.
That's their
I
orange.
think they count when a child is born.
No, they say that if a child is stillborn, that's not counted as part of infant mortality.
Well, we're gonna have to find out.
Because
I
that
don't
child
believe-
never was alive.
Okay.
And as opposed to in this country, if a child is born, even if the child isn't breathing at the time, you can't make it breathing through the traditional method.
Right.
You've seen
Right,
it,
I
slap the
understand.
bottom. We will go into Herculean
And you
efforts
believe we
in
should
this.
do that, of course.
Oh, I think we should. Yeah, I think we should. We have at least up until the point that we can, get past abortion opportunities in this country. We have we have a real respect for life, and we try to keep an infant alive. In other countries, and certainly less developed countries in particular, but also under some socialized medicine regimes, they would take a situation like that and say, how sad, how unfortunate, that child was not born alive. And so it means a couple of things beyond just saving money. It means
I'll
that it means
disagree
that
with
there's
you.
it
I'll
means there's
disagree with you.
statistics look at it.
No, I'm going to
Well,
disagree with you
well, you're
because
disagreeing with not
a
with me. You're
child
disagreeing
is
with the
born
facts.
who lives, who is okay. You're saying that Cuba looks at it differently, so they will let a child go that might be able to be revived. That's what you're saying,
Absolutely.
because they don't have all the equipment.
They don't have the equipment. They don't have an approach to that issue the same way we do in this country.
It's complicated, but I want to get back over to this guy because you said that your organization is bipartisan.
In fact, we are. It's a good.
How
it's a great
many
point.
Democrats do you have on your board?
Well, as a matter of fact, in New Hampshire, we have nearly 30,000 members, and among those 30,000 members of Americans for Prosperity, over 5,000 are registered Democrats.
Oh, okay. So in other words, 25,000 is Republicans and 5,000 Democrats.
That's not.
Oh,
There's
Ken,
also in
Ken,
Hampshire-
you're giving the reaction of whether the glass is half full or half empty. You want to talk about the half empty glass.
Excuse me.
That certainly does belie your.
20,000
We
to
don't-
5,000.
But
The glass doesn't have anything in it.
But
Yeah.
Ken, it's really not about attempting to coerce people of one party or another to join us. What it is about trying to talk about the issues of economic freedom and economic prosperity, and see who organically comes and is attracted to that message. And our focus is on it's a good message that's familiar here in New Hampshire: low taxes, limited government, reducing regulation, looking for opportunities where we can promote economic prosperity. There have been numerous examples of where Americans for Prosperity has spoken up on issues, most notably in New Hampshire on the issue of the gas tax. I know one of your
tax.
one of your ward
No, wait a minute.
compatriots
Excuse me. The gas tax. Of course, all your members don't believe that we should fix our highways and bridges, or
well, and that's a great
or
point.
do you have?
And that's a great point because the proponents of increasing the gas and diesel tax, by the way, as I'm reminded by our honorary chairman,
Which is 2 cents, not 4 cents a year.
but it's over 6 years, so it's still 12 cents. But the increase is the same. It's just a little bit longer runway before you get there. At the end of the day, the people who are proponents of the gas tax will talk about all the great things they can do with the money. However, what they seem to leave out is the impact it's going to have upon the people who have to pay the money. And if you're talking about increasing the gas tax by 67% or 12 cents a gallon, as we're looking at, and going from 18 cents a gallon to 30 cents a gallon, which, by the way, can take us from the lowest in the to the highest.
We've already talked about this, but we'll do it again. And no doubt we'll do it again. But it's 4 cents a year. When one says 12 cents, people out there go, "Oh my God, they're going to raise our gas 12 cents."
And they are.
No, it's over 3 years, 6 years, is it, or 4 years for diesel. But we are a state of tourism. That's really our stock and trade is tourism.
So we should attract tourism with higher gas prices?
No, the money is to go to the highway fund, fixing the bridges, fixing the roads. That's how we get people to come up here.
Well, let me ask you this then. If it's going to require another $2.50 to fill up your tank, which is what it's going to cost when this gas tax is fully implemented.
How much?
About $2.50. If it's a 20-gallon tank, 12 cents a gallon, it's about a little bit less than $2.50 extra. $2.50 extra to fill up your tank of gas.
No, it's 2 cents for correct. You're saying in 3 years that's what it'll cost.
When the tax is
But
fully implemented.
starting, let's say if it was 4 cents now, what would it be?
Well, for a 20-gallon, you'd have to initially pay another 80 cents, then the next year another 80 cents, another.
No. So it's 80 cents for 20 gallons.
Correct. And then when it's fully implemented, it's almost $2.50, which is a price of a lot of staples. And maybe you and I and maybe Bill can afford that. But there are a lot of people who are living on the edge for whom $2.50 might be the difference between buying a gallon of milk or filling up their tank of gas so that they can go to work.
And as you know, Ken, the problem is this is a false choice, as was discussed in debates on this issue. It isn't a choice between deteriorating highway infrastructure and a 67% tax increase that was brought to us by your party.
Wait a minute, 67, where does 67% come in? I've heard this before.
Sure, if 18 cents rather, 12 cents is 67.
It was 12
going
cents,
up.
not 18 cents.
No, it's currently 18 cents.
It's 18 cents now.
We go to
the tax
30.
is going up 12 cents.
All
that
right.
is 67% of 18 cents.
But let's make
And
sure
so
let's make
me-
sure that people
make-
watching this realize that it's not all at one time. It's not 18%.
At the end of the day, they're going to encounter, if the House vote to increase the taxes 67% is adopted by the
guys, stop
Senate, they're going to
that.
have a 67% tax increase. It's huge.
All
There's
right.
no getting around it.
Okay,
Be proud of it,
hold
Ken.
on a second. Let us make sure people understand that. You're not going to go to the pumps and pay 67% more for gas. What it's going to be is 67%
higher tax.
higher in tax.
No,
So there's a
that's what I
big
said.
difference.
That's what I said. 67% higher.
Well, you guys kind of
You know,
make it like...
but Ken, you voted for it. Be proud of it. I've always been proud of my votes. If I we had to reduce spending in the term I was speaker by 11%, and we were proud of the work we did there because it was keeping promises. I guess the promise that was made is that you're going to increase expenditures for various programs, and so you raise taxes
Now,
67%.
let's see if I've got this straight.
You raise the home heating oil
So-
tax 25%.
So wait a minute. So wait,
And
let's see if I've got this
raised-
right.
you
You
raised the-
guys did nothing. Let's say, tell me what you did to help the individuals out there who needed, let's say, public assistance. Did you take any money away from these people?
You know-
What you're just talking about gas. And did you take anything away from these people?
You know how we helped
You're
them?
proud of that?
You know how we helped them? Is we made the hard choices to live within our means. And that was, in today's world, that was an extraordinary step. Not many state governments, and we've never seen it, certainly since the time of Ronald Reagan. Maybe we'd have to even go back to Calvin Coolidge to see,
Calvin Coolidge,
to see the federal government making that same decision that we only have so much money and we can't go back to the well again. Let's live within our means, and that did benefit everybody else.
You know, but let us. But for the people out there who have had financial trouble, why don't we just make it really clear what happened?
What, the 67% tax
No.
increase?
Let us.
That is going to exacerbate
we're
the trouble.
talking about. We were just for a moment how you took 10% and you did it well, and then you live within your means. Because this is important for us maybe to talk about it for the people who realize, look, a person has someone in college, another kid coming up for college, they need a car. They both have jobs. Everything is going fine. One of them loses a job. One can't go to college. So somebody turns around and says, you're living above your means. You're living above your means. That's what happened up here in New Hampshire. Is exactly that. All of a sudden we had all these jobs, we had this money coming in, and then what happened? So you blame it on Democrats.
In the real world, the folks are sitting out there watching this show, and they're saying, you know, they reduced spending 11%? I didn't know that.
Do they feel any better?
But it felt okay. It felt okay.
But the alternative, and we live in a world of choices, in a world of alternatives, and the alternative to not doing that, it would be to increase taxes, and by increasing taxes, you make it harder to get that job. For that person who might have lost their job, might not have been able to get another one, or maybe both.
Wait a minute. Under the Obama administration, things are getting a little bit better. Housing is up. In fact, we had one on our street that just went up, sold within an hour. Aren't things getting better?
If you call,
and this is not from the Republicans. This is from the Democrats.
If you went down to Main Street and just started stopping people on the sidewalk and you said, "Are things going well right now?" How many people do you think would say yes?
Listen, as far as I know, you can ask that at any time. You can go to Beverly Hills and ask people walking down there shopping at Gidge.
In 1999, when this economy was thriving during the middle of the dot-com era, I think that you would have been hard-pressed to find somebody who would say that the economy was not doing well. If you had that same conversation around, even in the middle of the 2000s.
So what happened? Now, granted, we were in the middle of the dot-com. That's another thing. That was a bubble. That was a crash. Okay, so you're right. If you go down and ask anybody, how do you feel? Well, I feel good today, but yesterday I didn't feel so good. I mean, that's kind of like a big question to ask somebody. But you get right down to it.
It was your question, Ken.
But no, if 4 cents taxes on gas.
12 cents.
Well, it's 4 cents a year for 3 years.
Which is 12 cents.
The question is, I would like 8 cents back on a gallon for every 4 cents I spend. Now you're going to go, well, how could that happen? Well, that's because let's bring more people up here to New Hampshire. Well, wait a minute. If our roads and bridges are better and easier to get back and forth, more people will come.
I want the listeners and the viewers of the show to understand that as you give us this choice, it is a false choice. Because the choice
what is the false choice?
The false choice is deteriorating highway structure or 67% tax increase. What you're not telling the folks is that we raid the highway fund on an ongoing basis, and there was a choice.
We went through that.
The choice was
3 weeks in a row. You did it yourself.
The choice
you took
is
out 27% of the highway funds to move it over to save the 10%. Correct?
No, I don't follow you. To save what,
Well,
10%?
didn't you take 27% of the
What
highway
what
funds
we
out?
said is we tax people through the gas tax to keep the bridges and roads repaired. If we didn't take $75 million a year of that money and send it to other agencies, the trails, we send it to the Department of Justice, we send it to the court system.
And why are they doing
we,
that?
We send it to...
Why are they doing that?
Because at one point in the 1970s, it turned out there was a lot more money in the highway fund than was thought to be needed to repair the roads. So we started this tradition of going to the highway fund and using it as a big bucket of money just to draw out of and meet other needs. We got used to it. So, and it worked well, you can say, for a time period. Now we are told, and we can argue whether or not it's true, we're told that there's these red-listed bridges, we have a highway infrastructure crisis. And so honest budgeting says, let's take the money that we tax the people to take care of the roads and bridges and use it for the roads and bridges, not use a third of it as Governor Hassan.
I agree with you. And then last year, when you were Speaker of the House and you had your budget, you took 27% of that out, didn't you?
Just has been
So
done.
now you're saying,
just has been done.
don't
since
do
the
that anymore.
1970s. Yes, because now we have a majority that says two things, neither of which we particularly agree with. One is crisis. The second is the need for a tax. Well, crisis, we can certainly say, you know, if you think it's a crisis, for purposes of argument, we'll accept that because the solution is at hand. The solution is not to raise the taxes. It's awful to raise taxes when you don't need the money.
You know,
when you don't need to raise taxes
67%,
Bill, that's just not
I
right.
love you, but guess what? That's just not fair to people who've worked very hard on this, to take a look at what's going on, to say, look, we need an investment in our roads and our bridges. This is a state of tourism.
We don't tax people because legislators have worked hard on the tax. We tax people because we need the money. And in this case, we're told we need the money because of the red-listed bridges.
So we don't need them.
What we need to do is to implement honest and accurate budgets.
Well, wait, we don't need the money?
No, we don't.
So we don't need the money, but we're using it anyway?
What we're doing is taking money out of the Highway Trust Fund, which we made a commitment to people that we'd use to keep roads and bridges repaired, and we're sending it elsewhere. And then we're saying, by the way, we want to raise your tax to 67% because we don't have enough money to repair roads and bridges.
It elsewhere. And I love what you say when you say sending it elsewhere. For instance, the trails that they fix.
So why don't we be honest?
That's not highway, right?
Why don't you say, I want a 67% tax increase.
That's not highway,
so I can
is
send
it?
more money to the trails.
Well,
or I want to 67%.
How many up here in New Hampshire snowmobiles come up here?
Again,
how much money does it make for the state? So you're saying that that's not a good idea, is to go and do that. Don't take that out of the highway funds.
No, again, you do a good job of putting in my mouth words that never were coming out on their own.
I couldn't do that.
What I'm saying is trails could be a great thing. You know, state police, core function, we ought to have state police. Department of Justice, they may not need the money we're sending to them. To courts, they may or may not. But let's be honest. If we say we're taking money from the taxpayer, the hardworking taxpayers, to repair bridges and roads, then let's use it for that. And let's let the Department of Justice, let's let the trail people, let's let the Department of Safety all come in and make an argument.
Wait a minute. I think trails, in the sense of real highway, especially when, I don't know, how many millions does that bring into the state of New Hampshire? I mean, if you don't think that should be taken out of that, maybe you're correct.
Yeah, but wait, see, don't you see how we're arguing at different levels? You're arguing results. I'm arguing promises made to the taxpayers.
I like results.
I think
I like results.
I think that all of these functions that you're talking about could be bad, could be good. I have no problem with government, for example, having some money go to trails. That could be a good thing. If we have enough money, then we ought to do it. What we should never do, though, is tell people we're taxing them from for one reason, and then taking that money and kind of slipping it out of the side
All
door
right,
and say, we're going to do something else with it.
But when you were there, you took out 27%, and now you're saying, let's put it all back and let's do this.
What
Now,
we did was
that's really,
what we did as we were closing up an $800 million deficit. What we did was not try to grow the deficit by changing accounting practices with the Highway Trust Fund. Now we're told, oh, we're at a crisis level, and we can talk about it. I mean, the one red-listed bridge of significance in my district.
I know. You canoe underneath it, you drive over it.
It's been red-listed for 40 years, and I've been up there for a while, and it hasn't been swaying in the wind. It looks okay, Ken. As I said, I kayaked under it, and I felt pretty good as I looked up. I didn't kayak any faster or anything to get out from under it more quickly. It looks okay.
I'm going to send the snowmobile people up to your house if it snows again.
It's still okay, Ken. Well, but we can accept red-listed bridges. But now we're telling this crisis has reached a level that we need a 67% tax increase.
Oh, don't keep saying that. People are not going to go to the pump and pay 67% more. They're going to pay, over a period of 3 years, 60% more of a tax upon that which we have, which is only 12 cents.
Well, let me do this, because I'm a lawyer. There's a reason that I didn't. I went to law school. It's because I couldn't handle the hard sciences and the math and all that.
You're right about that. You can't handle the math.
My compatriot here, though, I think you have a math background, don't you?
I do.
Actually, and so could you tell me?
I know that engineering degree.
That engineering degree. And so I want him to apply his science background to this issue of 67% and try to find out if 12 cents is 67% of 18 cents.
Last time I checked, unless
there's
been some changes in the basic math.
They didn't, in law school, they didn't.
They have changed the math curriculum these days.
So it's all the time by making it sound. It's 67% when they go up to the pump. They're going to pay more.
Here's some more hard numbers to look at, though, Ken. The budget that was provided to the House by the governor increased overall state spending by 10%. It also increased general fund spending once they took the part that they moved off budget by 10% as well. That's a 10% budget increase, and yet that budget increase does not include. It doesn't include the gas tax increase, and it doesn't include Medicaid expansion. That's about a little over $400 million over the biennium in additional costs that needed to be added back in to provide an honest budget. Now you're talking about a 14 or 15% increase. We're right back at that $11.5 billion budget that we saw in 2009 and 2010 that was so overblown that it had to be opened twice, not once, but twice, reopened in order to be adjusted. And in addition, created over $800 million in deficits.
But when you say reopened, this is nothing new. Everybody, to get a balanced budget, will stop it, will go back, will tweak it.
When you're setting yourself up to fail.
But you're making it sound like making it 2 times is awful. That's not awful.
Well, let me ask my former chief of staff, the budget that we put in place, did it need to be reopened?
Hasn't been reopened yet.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me that there were not conclusions made and then they had to stop and go back and to tweak before that?
There is a difference. There is a difference because governors, once they're given a budget by the legislature, by you, when you guys hand a budget over to the governor, it's the governor's responsibility to make sure that the government lives within that budget that it's given. Governors, historically, have been able to do that. They only come back to the legislature to manage that budget when things have gone seriously, seriously wrong. And they're saying, I can't do it all by my own levers of spending that I have.
And is it what you're making it sound like this is an awful because things have to be changed and moved. It's not. Isn't this how we work? You took 27% out of the fund that you want now to be funded 100%. Okay, you did it. Now you want the new governor or the new Speaker of the House to do, not to take what you took, but to put it all back. But could you have balanced your budget without that?
Certainly we could, but there would have been further cuts, and so we had to be reasonable. We had to take the deficit that was given to us, not grow it, Ken, but just handle it.
Well, that's the best answer.
So,
that's the best answer.
and so what we have now, as
I'll agree.
As Greg was talking, we have, you know, a budget that is just reversing all the gains that the people have been enjoying over the last couple of years.
Yeah, but
all this hard work we've done.
There's no more money coming into the state.
Actually, there is,
It's
because the budget,
there
the budget
is.
that was introduced,
And why is it coming?
the
Why are they
budget that was
coming?
introduced by Governor
Houses,
Hassan
more houses being sold.
includes 10 tax and fee increases, and that's not even counting the 67% increase on gas or the 25% increase on heating oil that the House just passed yesterday.
Does it count that 800% increase on the fee to have background checks done on camp counselors that we passed?
No, that doesn't count those either. That's
In
another one.
We went from
Yeah,
25,
yeah, you know,
25
let's
to
not get down to
$200.
details. God forbid we get to the
800%.
details of it.
But this
Right.
is what I would suggest to you. The people of New Hampshire care about. They understand that government is, one, necessary, two, does some very wonderful things, but they want those who are running the government, those who are in the majority, to be reasonable. They want cuts to be reasonable if it's time for cutting. They want tax increases to be reasonable if it's a time to increase taxes. Increasing taxes, 25% for home heating oil, that's not reasonable. 67% for gas, that's not reasonable.
Weren't you
800% when it comes to a fee to check the criminal.
Weren't you the Republicans that sent, was it $600,000 back to the government, or stop $4 million to be used to study the rail? Weren't you the guys who did that?
Absolutely, that was fiscal prudence.
Let's not. Oh, so
That was fiscal
where
prudence.
was the money going to go?
I'll tell you what
Back
we did.
to the federal government.
I tell you what we did then is we didn't spend $1 million of the federal government's money because the end result would have been a $38 million obligation on the people of New Hampshire.
$1,038,000?
Yes, absolutely,
Oh.
because that money was to fund a health care exchange. And if you look at Vermont's experience, our estimate was $38 million to run one.
And is there going to be a health care exchange? Is there going to be a health care exchange?
And you mentioned another.
Does there have to be a health care exchange?
The federal government can commit its own errors.
So
we don't have to participate.
So wait a
in it.
minute. So
But you
instead of
mentioned
us running it, you want the government to run it, right?
the federal government can
No,
commit its
no,
own.
seriously.
Oh, yeah, if you want to get
I
into
was
the
in Commerce when that came up.
If you want to get the specifics of, if we don't implement it ourselves, then the businesses in New Hampshire can't be fined if they don't have insurance for their employees by the Obamacare. So there was reasons to do it. Well, that's what the president calls it now, with great pride and to the shame of his party. But let me you mentioned another thing, which is $4 million because we didn't take federal funds for this train. That train would
study.
That
to
train.
study.
You know what we need to understand that train, if we studied our way into implementation, would cost the people of New Hampshire $18 million a year after $300 million
Wait a minute.
After $300 million was spent.
The last time I looked at the numbers, Nashua, where we are, is the city that puts more into our treasury. And I believe Manchester comes in second. When Manchester and Nashua would like trains, would like it to go further, guess what? We're not doing this for amusement. We're doing it for commerce. And on that note, let's get back to your friend here. I could argue with this gentleman on and on and on. Your organization basically is a Republican organization.
I wouldn't agree
You make
with
it
that
really
at all.
clear that you don't like anything to do with Obama. You don't like Obamacare. It doesn't make any difference if it's coming or not. Is that fact?
It's not a fact that we're a partisan organization. In fact, there are a number of Republicans whom we've spoken against pretty
On your
vociferously.
committee, any Democrats?
My committee? Which
I
committee?
mean, excuse me, on your board. You must have a board.
There are national boards. There are multiple boards. Actually, we're two.
No, I mean, are there any Democrats on the New Hampshire board?
As a matter of fact, there is a Democrat on our New Hampshire
One?
board. There's one, yes. But having said that, our advisory board hasn't met in 3 years, and that's one of the things I'll be making sure we get more energy into our advisory board. So we're going to be working behind that very closely, and certainly it's not going to be driven by any party. It's going to be driven by ideas, Ken, and that's the critical component. Is that we're going to be focusing on ideas, and the ideas are making sure that New Hampshire can move up in the rankings. As a matter of fact, just today.
Wait,
let me
didn't
finish.
you vote for Romney?
What's that?
Didn't Romney say exactly what you're saying now?
Well, I'm finished.
I'm not sure what your point is, but
don't know.
Point is, it's
I
34
will say-
minutes. Don't get rid of the guy. I'm getting beat up here. It's worse than the
I
other
don't know.
I'll tell you-
I listened to Romney, and I didn't hear him talk about the board of
No, I must have
AFP
missed that part
in New
entirely.
Hampshire, but he might
I know
have.
that President Obama spoke about Americans for Prosperity quite a bit, but I'll tell you, just today, the Mercatus Center out of George Mason University put forth a study. It's called Ranking the 50 States.
Okay, wait. George Mason, that's a Republican, basically, university?
It's a public university in the
It's
state of Virginia.
But it's a religious public? What?
Religious public?
No. I mean, how?
It's a public university.
The organization,
The Mercatus Center. It's a center like the Carsey Institute at UNH. So it's a part of the university. The Mercatus Center in the George Mason University in Virginia publishes a study every 2 years. It's called the Freedom in the 50 States Index, and they rank the states. In New Hampshire, on economic freedom has fallen from 1st to 6th place, and so we've fallen not over the course of just 2 years. But these are data going back through the end of 2010.
This is Republican rhetoric which I'm just getting again. And the stuff that I've had for 2 years, which is driving me crazy.
We're falling behind.
If you guys were so right, why is Obama president again? You're wrong in a great deal of your numbers. You make it sound so good. You look so civilized. And by the way, here's a nice guy.
But
we're going to get rid of him.
In my experience, he is civilized, but I'll let him address that.
All right.
Well, I will say this, and that is the numbers are what they are, and the basis for these rankings have been in place since 2001, since they began taking them. And when you look at our fiscal freedom index, we've fallen from 2nd to 7th. And when it comes to our overall rating, we've fallen from 1st. We were number 1. We've now fallen to 4th.
Well, I want to see some of this because it's very easy for you to say that. I'm sorry, I don't have the same information you do.
I believe it's called freedomin50states.com, I believe is the website. But you can Google it, go to Mercatus Freedom Index.
And it's bipartisan?
No, it's by a university.
It's a bipartisan study?
You mean in terms of the numbers being
bipartisan
Republican
means
numbers?
it's not funded by one of the brothers. And
Oh, it's probably nonpartisan, is what you mean.
It's a public university, right. So it's funded by the taxpayers of Virginia in part. I'm sure the taxpayers in Virginia come from all parties.
But this part of the university is not funded by any particular group or person to do these studies.
As far as George Mason. I mean, I'm sure it's in large part funded by the taxpayers of Virginia, as far as by the tuitions of the people who go to school there. I mean, is the Carsey Institute funded by a particular
No, you know
group?
the answer to that, but you're not going to say. Who does the major funding for this part of the university? Who?
I have no idea as far as who funds George Mason's university to do the Mercatus Center.
All right, I think.
I'm sure
we have to get him back.
But a whole number of people.
I want to know what we're going to talk about first. Listen, thank you. Do you have again, give the website or what it is?
The website is www.americansforprosperity.org. And if you go on to that's the national website, and you can go and they'll say find a state chapter, and you can go scroll down and go to New Hampshire, and you can find specific information about New Hampshire, or you can go to the national website to get information about what's going on in Congress and in Washington.
Okay.
And Greg, you're a good guy to be here, because as I have to spend my time keeping Ken under control, there's a lot of guests that just have to sit here and try to remain awake.
Hold on a second. Is this fun? We do this.
You guys look like you're having a lot of fun. It's good TV.
We hope so. We hope so. But you did invite him. I'm going to invite you. I do want you to come back.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me.
Okay, no, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks, Greg.
we're going to
Appreciate
take a
it.
break, and we'll be back in a moment. Hi, we're back, and I'm mad. I'm mad at you. Why did you bring this guy on? He is so Republican. You both beat me up. Why? I thought we were friends. Who is this guy?
No. I'm the Republican, and he was bipartisan.
He
And
was
and
what?
It was just facts. I know the facts can be tough here, and
Oh.
but one of the things that I really admire about Greg is that he brings facts to these discussions.
Look, I can skew any numbers. Anybody can do that. He's a nice guy, he's smart, but he's working now with a real Republican organization, and he's trying to tell us that it's not. It's a bipartisan. It's not.
Everything that is done out there that makes the agenda of the Democrats uncomfortable doesn't come from Republicans. Sometimes it just comes from the mere facts. When we talk about, for example, New Hampshire slipping in competitiveness and slipping in economic freedom and slipping in all the indicia of social health, it's not something that we have to sit there and say, well, you can't say that to me, you're partisan. What we ought to be saying is, okay, what produced this? And what should we reverse in order or recapture?
Yes, but I will say to you, you guys had it for 2 years, right, here in New Hampshire. The voters were really upset for some reason at you guys.
Oh, no.
So the facts that you used, or maybe you have new facts now, the facts that you used, guess what, didn't work.
And there we'll disagree.
And so they were wrong?
And there we'll disagree because the voters loved what we did. You know why we're not in the majority? Because we had clipboards and they had iPads. Exactly what Representative Burt told us the other day. We were conducting our election with clipboards, and we were outclassed by tacticians who used iPads.
Oh, wait a minute.
And so we
intellectually beat you guys?
No, you had the
You're
technology.
using pencils and we're using iPhones?
You had great technology. The Obama campaign, that $1 billion campaign, was well funded and was able to capture its victory and produce the results we saw in New Hampshire with iPads while we were using clipboards.
I like the way that's put. To be perfectly honest with you, because I spent a lot of time down and we used their place where the Obama campaign was. And I could not believe how many people were there, exactly what they were doing. But I didn't think it would be like this. I thought Romney would at least win Massachusetts. I mean, that's...
Yeah. Well, not Massachusetts, though. I mean, Massachusetts...
No, I guess maybe that's his home state. If you don't win your home state, I mean, you got to win your state where your summer home is at.
Well, he won a number of his home states, didn't he? Just not that particular home state.
Well, that guess, let's bring him back on.
Greg's a good guy. I think it was a good discussion.
Yes.
We should have probably, I should have, not you. I should have deferred to him a little bit more and got some more information. So let's do have him back.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, he was your chief of staff, and I've got to say, I don't know a harder working person. I mean, you chose the right person. This guy is like, I asked him, he's running like a crazy guy all over the place. It's not using the elevators, up and down the stairs. I mean, you got a lot out of him.
And there's a lot of folks up there who work, and I agree. Greg did provide really great service to the state, both in the position as chief of staff, and he worked in Health and Human Services. I think, I'll probably get his position wrong, but I think it was sort of an assistant commissioner position under John Stephen, so I think the state did get a lot of them. But there's a lot of people in the legislature, and you know this, who are in the staff up there. And they work really hard. The House Clerk is someone who's recognized internationally as an expert in parliamentary procedure.
Yes.
There's people who work in
Yes.
the Office of Legal Services and Drafting.
Yes.
There's people who work over in the Legislative Office building, keeping hearings going.
How in the world? You were the Speaker of the House. How in the world did you keep all that stuff going? We talked about this, I think, before, about you only had 5 people working with you, and you talked to other speakers of the House where they had 30 or...
Yeah, 30, or Sheila Oliver, I can't remember now. I should be careful in the numbers. You know, she's the speaker in New Jersey, but yeah, it was, I want to say like 84 on a direct staff. You know, the people of New Hampshire get really good service out of the government. You know, look at us, Ken. I mean, we're up there for $100 a year, and if we were in California, we'd be up there for, you know, $95,000 a year.
And we've mentioned this, and I was in an accident going up there, $5,100 of damage on my car. I mean. But I do it. I chose to do it. But I'll tell you, you're right. And I've said this before. A liberal Democrat, many places on planet Earth, we're considered conservative because we're arguing about things that are very, very important, but compared to what other states are going through.
Yeah. No, I think the context of the New Hampshire advantage, the belief that we are still somehow the live free or die state, I think it actually, you know, affects both parties. You know, certainly from my perspective, the Republicans being more of a free market oriented, smaller government, limited government party is really kind of attuned to that. But you know, when I talk to folks who are sitting around me now, other Democrats, they're concerned about the size of government and the burden of government.
Well, of course they are, but every time a Republican gets in there, you guys say smaller government, you build the government up.
Well,
what
Ken,
Republican president has made our government smaller?
Ken, when I cut states, when under my speakership, the legislature cut state spending 17.8%, and the Democrat governor shielded his eyes and walked away and let that become law without his signature, we weren't growing government, were we?
Well, then, that's another complete other subject. But you made a speech in the House recently, which got a lot of notoriety, especially from Democrats. Can you explain to people who are watching us what the speech was?
Well, you know, a lot of these problems that we deal with are perennial problems. And so what we discussed the first part of the show was the gas tax. I won't put a percentage on it because I know that makes you uncomfortable. We'll just call it the gas tax. And
not much. It's to bring more people up here to the state of New Hampshire. Republicans don't want it. The Democrats, okay.
All right, Ken.
All right.
It's a 67% tax
okay,
increase.
here we go. We got 7 minutes.
I wasn't going to mention it, but it is 67% tax increase. So this issue of red-listed bridges and how do we fund keeping the highway infrastructure up is a perennial issue. And it came up, as it turned out, after I began my effort here to try to get us to recognize that we don't have to increase the tax and gas tax. We just have to make sure the funds that we already get are being properly allocated. Someone pointed out to me that had come up in the 1996 gubernatorial debate between Ovid LaMontagne and now Senator Jeanne Shaheen. And that debate is still online. You can go to C-SPAN and you look at the debate there.
Yeah.
And so Governor, the future at that point, Governor Shaheen, now Senator Shaheen, made some statements that I would have come up with these elegant words myself if I had thought of them. And so I got on the House floor and read to my colleagues some of the words she talked about, which is essentially government having to use the funds it has more wisely before it goes out and tax again, and how we shouldn't be diverting highway funds. And it's as if I thought up these words myself. So I was able to present, when I argued to the House, not just the O'Brien anti-diversion amendment, but the O'Brien-Jeanne Shaheen anti-diversion amendment.
And that was about the 2 sentences ending your speech, and the place just really broke up. That was a good. Of course, the Democrats around me are like this. And I'm going, oh God, that was good. That was, but that and it was.
So Ken, if I make a speech like that on the House floor and I should like run out after making it because some of your colleagues are getting too upset, could you give me the high sign and say, don't walk up between the aisles, Bill, get out of here quickly?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think what people are surprised about you, I mean, you've taken, as for the speaker, there's a lot of things you could have done, but instead what it looks like, you've decided not to sit down front, sit in the back, because you're always working, you're writing, you're talking to other Republicans, and you're really busy, and it surprises me.
Yeah, there's been a few.
Surprises a lot of people.
Yeah, no, there's been a few issues that came up that really are concern to me. You know, we don't lose our love for this state and our concern for the state, no matter what position we hold. And I know we're on the opposite side of some of these issues, such as the gas tax increase or Medicaid expansion. But I get concerned how they will affect the state, and you just can't sit back. You have, at least in my case, you have to get out there and make sure that the perspective I have, which I think is better for the state, is being presented. And that means, we're legislators. You talk to other legislators, talk to Republicans, talk to Democrats. I sit next to a Democrat, and I sit, right behind some Democrats, legislators in the House. We talk about the issues, and you do your best to try to get your thoughts across.
But from being the Speaker of the House of 400 representatives to sitting in the back, some people at the beginning at least thought, oh, that's awful, they put him in the back. No, that's where you wanted to be, because having been in the House with you before you were Speaker, you never sat down. You were always up. You were always working the people. I mean, that's what politics is basically about.
It is, and
people should, and Democrats have upset at me for us doing a show, but I like to say, hey, Democrats, guess what?
Ken, one of the things I think we always have to be careful to do, whether we're a first-term representative or Speaker of the House, is never confuse the job with ourselves. When I was Speaker, one of the things I did to demonstrate that I'm just a temporary occupant here, and it's a privilege to be here, but it's not anything I'm entitled to, and nor am I entitled to privileges that go with it, is I took that prize parking space that where it is.
Yes.
For the Speaker, right at the Legislative Office building.
Yeah.
And I gave it away to the senior member of the House, and on
Which was, she was about?
Laura Pentelakis from Portsmouth, and I don't know, even if I knew her age, I wouldn't say it.
Yeah,
she has
I know.
Age. And so that meant that I would park out across Main Street,
which is about a quarter mile.
Yeah, which is fine, which is where most representatives park on session day, because I think it's very important to demonstrate, as the leader of the organization, you set the tone, that we're here as a privilege. We're here to do work. We're not here to lord it over ourselves, other members here, or the public in general. And that's one of the reasons that I decided, when we had the loss in the majority, that I was going to let other people, take the leadership. And I wanted to sit in the back. I did it for a couple of reasons. One is I didn't want to be there as an alternate source of authority or power with the leadership of my caucus. But I also wanted people to realize there's nothing at all wrong about going and sitting and being a backbencher. It's a very honorable thing to do to serve the public in whatever way you can.
Well, we have about one more minute, and I'm glad I had you talking, because you had something right here that you wanted to talk about, but we only have 53 seconds left.
and there's no way to cover this document in any sort of accuracy,
no,
so I'll bring it in. In the most recently,
we got about a minute and a half.
In the most recently completed session, someone, and I want to make sure that everyone knows it wasn't you, but someone gave me the Democratic caucus notes for that session, instructing its members on how to vote. And I have to tell you, and this is politics
on
too.
How to vote?
Well, sure. It says,
the
support,
party.
Yeah, he says, please oppose any floor amendments, for example, on House Bill 135.
And there's something
This-
wrong with that?
Well, I tell you where there's something wrong on that particular one, and I wanted to ask you about it. It says, the Stand Your Ground law encourages, I quote, encourages the escalation of violence by specifically condoning a violent response. Did you think that was the case? Did you,
No,
and
no, I didn't.
and so where does that kind of recommendation come from?
Well, this is a whole other show because I can't point to you and say you did this, but you had people in the last 2 years who were pretty heavy-handed on some of the things they didn't do. Maybe they didn't put it down on paper, but so it looked like it was you who was doing it. But I personally have never been denied to talk to you. I mean, never. I think once you said, well, see me in a half hour, you want to have lunch. So, I mean, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need guests. It just goes on because
Let's
interesting. That's good to talk about.
Yeah, let's sit down. Maybe next show we can kick it off on this because I know you probably didn't even see this. I know you're fairly independent-minded when you're in the House, but I'd like to get a perspective on this kind of rhetoric because I don't think it's helpful.
Well, go ahead. So give you a telephone number and Facebook, and let's get out of here.
Yeah, let's do
it.
it.
I want to go patch up my wounds.
Oh, hardly. You always get the better of us, and then you
yes.
think you don't.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Poor Greg Moore is out there in the parking lot of the studio.
Oh,
Greg
can handle himself.
Trying to pull himself together so he can put the key into the slot and drive away. But again, Bill O'Brien, my email address is at Gmail. It's williamlobrien@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook under actually my own name, and you can reach me at 603-673-6610.
And I'm Ken Gidge, and I'm on Facebook also. Also, you can go to Gidge World, which is an art site. And by the way, I've donated some art to Channel 11 auction that's coming up, and they were happy to take it. So you get me there. Or my cell phone is 864-9332. That's 603-864-9332. Email address is kgidge, that's KGIDGE @AOL.com. And this has been fun tonight.
It has been. Thanks.
All right.
Okay.